Hi, good morning, all.
Hi, good
Thank you for
morning.
joining for today's LinkedIn Live. Good morning, Sumi ma'am.
Good
How are you
morning.
today?
Doing great.
Yeah, hi, I'm Arva Bombewala, and we have here Dr. Nivedita Srivastava and Professor Sumi Jha with us. We'll deep dive into people analytics. I'm sure our audience would be waiting for Sumi ma'am to share her insights on people analytics. I would like to introduce our guest today. Dr. Nivedita, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Arva. I hope everyone's having a lovely morning. I am Dr. Nivedita Srivastava, and I'm the founder and CEO of Nine Links. And as an organization, Nine Links basically carries expertise in the space of psychometric assessments and organization development. Thank you.
So, ma'am, can you explain our audience what you do and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Arva. And I'm Professor Sumi Jha. I am Professor for Organizational Behavior and Human Resource Management. And I also take subjects like people analytics. Um, as a professor, we have not only as a teaching we are involved, we are also involved in training, consulting, and research activities. And You all would have understood by now, people analytics is actually very close to my heart. And I understand that if we will measure people related data, we can take a lot of strategic decisions in the organization.
Okay, great. I'll ask you two to have the conversation, and we'll take the questions at the end of the session. So you can address to Dr. Nivedita or Sumi ma'am your questions you have at the end of the session. Okay,
Thank you.
let's begin. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sumi, it's always so nice to have you around as and also as an advisor to Nine Links, as a research advisor to Nine Links. So it's always such a pleasure to have you around and supporting us in our endeavors of promoting not only psychometric assessments but people analytics and organization development as a key vision that Nine Links carries. Besides other activities, this is a new series of event that we have started under the banner of Nine Links, which is a conversation with an expert in specific areas. So this conversation, that's this LinkedIn live that we're doing with you, will be the second one that we're doing, and of course we would love to have you again once again for several other areas as well. So yes, so I hope you're all geared up for this engaging and lovely experience. So yeah.
Thank you, Nivedita, for inviting me for this, for sharing my views on my favorite topic. But I'll let it be free flow and ask a few questions, and I'm
Sure,
hoping to
definitely.
answer them. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I think just to begin with the basics, my first question would be a very basic one, I'm sure. And I think just to introduce the topic of people analytics, I would want to ask you that what do we actually mean by the term people analytics? Although there's been a lot of buzz around this word, around this term, around this word, but yes, it would be really nice if you could, share more insights as to what do we actually mean by people analytics.
Um, okay, so people analytics is a function where we collect, understand, and analyze people related or employee related information. Fine. So we collect information in the form of data and we try to provide a meaningful insight for strategic decisions. So we collect information, convert them into data, and use it for decision making. There are some pillars of people analytics. We start with workforce planning analytics, talent sourcing and acquisition analytics, onboarding and engagement analytics, performance management analytics, then attrition and retention analytics. And recently, we have also added employee wellness analytics in the fold of people analytics. So uh, it is a vast area where wherever we can collect people related data and make sense out of that data would fall under people analytics area.
Sure, sure. Right. So as I understand that people analytics has multi-fold advantages, and I think wherever there are numbers associated with any information that we gather, that kind of definitely takes care of the objectivity and the scientific nature that we bring to the table, I think. So I'm sure this must be quite an engaging area. So going forward, would also want to understand that when you have really explained that which all domains of HR, or human resources for that matter, people analytics is essential. I'm sure you'd want to throw more light in with the detailed information when we proceed further with the conversation. But I think it's also important to understand, besides the what, the second question that of course pops up into anybody's on anybody's mind is the why factor, right? So the second question that I want to ask is that why do we really need people analytics, and also how does it really actually work? Does people analytics actually really work, and what could be possible advantages of it? So maybe you could throw more insights into that.
I'll just start with one statement wherein, when you said that people analytics would be more about collecting data in numbers, so actually it is beyond that. It is not only so data that we collect is not necessarily in numbers. It can be qualitative data, which is interviews and all, which on which I may speak a little later. But let me answer your question of why people analytics, which is definitely a very pressing need. The answer to this question is very important, because sometimes we still have doubts that shall organization should go for people analytics as a function or not. So actually, people analytics helps in taking meaningful people related strategic decisions. So sometimes we take decision that may not add much meaning to the decision. So meaningful people related strategic decision. Before the trend of people analytics, we would have information then also, but we never took efforts in creating a platform for organizing employee data in a structured form. So, people analytics actually helped in organizing people related data in structured form, and then take informed decisions based on the data that we have. So, therefore, here, this was one of the benefit that we had of people analytics. Secondly, data-based people-related decisions actually helped in minimizing biases, being aware of latent and hidden information, and then taking objective decisions. So, what would happen is sometimes in our decisions, a lot of biases would creep in. If we have objective data with us and we are taking informed decision, the chances are there that we will minimize biases, and therefore this was of importance. So the first or second reason that I was saying for why people analytics is it helps HR department to start organizing employee data in a meaningful way, which in turn help for effective recruitment, engagement, talent, retention related decisions that organization takes. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Right, of course. Right. So, going forward, Sumi, while we know there are multiple functions under under the whole umbrella of human resource management, right? But I think the basics start with talent acquisition. So, whichever sector of organization, whatever size of organization that we talk about, I think talent acquisition is one wing of human resource management, which apparently is one of the most imperative ones. You can't do away with talent acquisition. So let's just say that there might be a small organization which might not be very invested into the learning and development of their employees, let's say a micro or a small scale organization, but apparently they just can't do away with the talent acquisition. Of course, the rate at which they might be engaging into that process would entirely depend on what are their size of the organization and several other parameters, right? So yes, so I think as I just spoke about that, talent acquisition being one of the most important wings of human resource management, one of the most imperative ones as well. So if you could also share that, what could be the applications of people analytics as as a um, as an area or as a stream, right? That how could it be used for sorry, for talent acquisition under for various organizations, and also how beneficial it could be in the long run.
Okay. So, of course, as I said, people analytics, it has several pillars. And one of the pillar wherein people analytics is used extensively is at the stage of talent acquisition. And I'll also share one small PPT to explain this particular phenomena. But let me just start with we know the phrase that we have: what gets measured gets done. So earlier, when we used to have our recruitment or talent acquisition function, we would say that we could not get a particular kind of talent, or we would have excuses. But now, talent acquisition analytics helped us in measuring these concepts so effectively that we will be able to achieve our targets better. So as I was saying, so it is one of the important function of HR department as talent acquisition. And in simple word, when we say, we can say recruitment system being effective or ineffective. So whether my recruitment system is effective, then we can say that my talent acquisition is effective or not effective. And we can also say that whether we are acquiring right candidate or not. So let me just share some basic metrics that organization can use to check how the talent acquisition function performs given these metrics. And if they are able to perform well in these metrics, uh, it will definitely result in significant cost reduction for the organization in the long run, which you were asking. So let me just share one PPT with you all to explain this phenomena in a much better way.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think they are not letting me upload it. So maybe I'll again try. So, Arva, I have already shared the slides with you yesterday. So, will it be possible to upload it? But in general, I'll just tell you by the time that there are several ways through which we can actually do talent acquisition metrics. So, for example, actually, the audience can answer a few questions wherein how we will measure the vacancy rate. Is it that organizations are able to measure vacancy rate or not? Fine. So, is it that I am letting my vacant position being vacant for longer period of time, or am I able to fill it quickly? Fine. Second could be like first year turnover rate, wherein we try to understand that how quickly we can, or is it that my when I recruit a candidate, how quickly they are leaving the organization? Are we able to retain them at least for 1 year, or is it that within 1 year they left? So we will have a matrix wherein we can say that how many candidates were recruited this year and how many of them left within a year. So if candidates are leaving within a year, this means there is some problem in our acquisition or talent acquisition process itself. Another parameter through which we can understand and measure the talent acquisition is, I think Arva is asking a question. Yes, Arva, you can upload it. So so next slide, Arva, and further. Yeah, so this is the slide that I wanted to refer, wherein vacancy rate is one measure through which we can understand talent acquisition effectiveness, and the second method through which we can understand talent acquisition effectiveness is by measuring how quickly employees leave organization. Is it that they stay in the organization for at least 3-4 years, or within a year they leave the organization? A third important parameter through which we can measure talent acquisition is the new hire performance. And we can check whether within a year before the probation period happens, how good the performance is. If the performance is not so good, we have the option for taking a decision on the candidate. So it is important for us to measure that and see if in the first year the performance of candidates are good. This means my talent acquisition process that I have followed are good. So can we measure that? Can we identify how many of candidates did we onboarded this year, and then how they performed in the first year? So and if it is beyond our average performance expectation, then we can say that our acquisition process was good. And one more point which is important in this case is time to fill. Time to fill the vacancy or vacant position is another measure through which we can say that our talent acquisition process is effective. So if we are taking long time to fill, it is not so effective. If we are taking too short a time to fill, then also it may not be effective, because I may compromise on the quality of the candidate. So, therefore, here we try to fill the position in an optimum time. And then we understand that what is the time lag between the process of acquisition started and the candidate has accepted the offer. It should be optimum time. It should not be too less that I'm compromising on the quality of candidate, and it should not be too much that the need for that candidate itself won't happen. Fine. So this is one point wherein these are four quick metrics through which we can understand how effective my talent acquisition process is. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, sure. Right. So I think this was definitely very helpful for me, wherein many a times our recruiter friends face several challenges in filling up various positions, some which are like hot burning positions, that they always struggle with. So I think such kind of people analytics and information that they can gather during the process, right from the beginning, can help them in the long run. So yes, I think this is definitely one piece of value added information for our friends from the recruitment fraternity. So yes, definitely, I think one other issue that our friends in the recruitment industry, people in the talent acquisition domain, they face is the dropout of candidates, right? I'm sure it's like an ouch factor for all our friends, wherein with all the struggle and all the effort that they've done, and at the last moment the candidate has simply dropped out. And I'm sure it's one chaotic morning for everybody, that that this candidate was just about to join, and we can't hear back from him, right? So how do you think that talent acquisition or analytics can predict about potential renage of the candidate? So I'm sure with your help, such kind of situations, such kind of bad mornings could definitely be avoided for any,
Yes.
any expert in the domain of talent acquisition. Could be quite a relief, I would rather say. So yes, please, it would be nice to hear from you on that.
Yeah, so I'll take this piece from the last point, which is mentioned in talent acquisition effectiveness, which is time to fill. So if you see here, it is written, uh, uh, new hire accepts an offer of employment. But ideally, this time to fill should be measured as until a new hire joins an employment, because after acceptance also many employees leave or many candidates leave or they won't join. Fine, so therefore the effectiveness is measured primarily by a new hire joining the organization rather than new hire just accepting an offer of employment. Now, so there is an organization at Bangalore, Scalene Works. Maybe someone would know about it. So they do a very good work on predicting renage. And so there are some factors that they try and collect beforehand. The information about candidate they try and collect beforehand. So the information, like apart from the information that we usually collect, which is of course about gender, name of the organization and other points, apart from that, what they definitely collect is what is the date of joining that the candidate wants. Okay, and then they also collect over a period of time after acceptance of offer that how many times the candidate has extended the date of joining. Is it that the candidate has extended the date of joining? So if candidate is extending date of joining 2 3 times, this is one of the indication that the candidate may renege. One. Number two, what is the notice period? So if the candidate is giving a notice period is okay, but is it that the candidate is extending the notice period? What is the duration of extension? If the candidate is on 0 day notice period, chances of renege is less. If the candidate is 3 months notice period, the chances of renege is high.
Hi.
Fine. Similarly, at which level they are joining. So if it is at the senior level, middle level, or junior level, this information helps. Fourth information, which is very helpful, is the salary differential that they are expecting and we are providing. Fine. So they would have certain compensation at the previous organization, and then certain compensation differential would be offered in the new organization. How much is that? Is that significantly different? Or is it that that was what was expected by the candidate who is joining? So if there is an agreement in the salary differential, the chances of renege is less. So after providing an offer, there is something called POFU, post offer follow up. The post offer follow up by employers starts, and in that post offer follow up they check whether the date of joining was extended or not, whether the notice period was extended or not, whether the candidate is male or a female, whether the salary differential was satisfactory or not, whether the level was middle level or junior level, whether there was a transfer proposed, or the home location is not the
Home location.
location
Yeah.
of employment is somewhere else. So now when we have a profile of a candidate which says that the candidate has extended offer letter, date of joining, the candidate has extended notice period, the candidate is male from middle level, and so on, then there are 80% to 90% of chances are there that we will be able to predict renege. We can say if the profile of a candidate matches these criteria, chances are there that the candidate would renege.
Sure.
And by reducing or by being able to predict at least 80% of time, it saves lots of cost to the for the organization. So this is one way wherein renage can be reduced significantly.
Right. That's a very interesting example. In fact, just the way people analytics is such so close to you or to your heart. I think similarly, I can just kind of remember one case study, case that I came across. Of course, just the way as I was just mentioning that people analytics is close to your heart. Psychometrics is something that I breathe day in and day out. So, but then interestingly, I could just recollect something that while you were just explaining that example of somebody who's extended notice periods,
Huh.
so would be
Yeah.
would have a higher tendency to drop out and experience more. So something that I just thought maybe I should share with you as well, that
Hmm.
once we were doing we were conducting psychometric assessments for the lower rung roles for a for a microfinance company. And interestingly, the integrity score that we had assessed of a candidate was very low, was actually in the non acceptable range. And when the recruiter at the client end, they kind of correlated it with the CIBIL score. It turned out to be so that his low integrity score also correlated to his low CIBIL score. So that's how I think information, deeper insights into a person's profile could help us, could save us as from various mishaps during the recruitment process. And just one more that I thought I could share was
Hmm.
that again, a similar exercise that we did for the same organization. So apparently, a female candidate,
Hmm.
stress tolerance levels and adaptability were very less. So when it turned out to be so, when they dug deep into her, into her family backgrounds, etc., they realized that she was a single mom struggling with a with a bedridden mother. So it kind of helped us become more confident that yes, such kind of insights definitely help recruiters. So I'm sure just something that I just
Exactly.
remembered and I thought I could share with you as well.
Uh,
And great.
Thank you so much. These were very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Thanks. Going forward, Sumi, so while we spoke about the potential lineage of the candidate, right? It would be also very nice to understand that how can people analytics help us identify the better of the lot, the creamier lot, and more talented employees. And also, can it help us in understanding or predicting that what are the chances, or what is the rate at which maybe they would probably leave sooner? So is there something which could help us in gauge that as well?
Yeah, sure. Usually organization uses performance management system for identifying the high performer and low performer employees. But the question is, shall we say that employee who is high performer will be the most talented one? Because when we try and understand talent, it is possible that they may not be high performer. They may be contributing to the team through some of the talent. So that is one important point that we need to identify. So here, people analytics comes very handy. For the organization, actually, team performance and organizational performance is more important than individual performance. So, if we will nurture talent by collecting data beyond performance, we will be able to understand contributions and efforts of employees towards team, and that shall be recognized. So when we talked about and therefore we misinterpret high performer versus high talent employees. And it is possible that high performer leaves the organization, another high performer may join the organization. But if high talent employee leave the organization, it leaves a void in the organization. Fine. So therefore it is important for us to recognize them. So these days, many employees are leaving organization, for example, because of lack of flexibility of work, work from home, and work from office phenomena. So we all know that organizations have started calling employees, and they are not able to retain their employees in the organization because of the lack of flexibility. So there is a small analytics that an organization can do, and it can help in reducing attrition significantly. So can I request you to just go to the next slide, Arva? Yeah, so this is one important point. So here what organization had done simply is to understand the matrix of flexibility or hybrid work in 2 points, which is one is place and another is time. So, and then ask employees where you fit in terms of flexibility. So rather than just giving flexibility of time, of coming from this to this, it is important for us to understand that different employee has different need, and thus flexibility, the definition of flexibility itself may differ, and because of which many talented employee may leave the organization. So this particular matrix actually helps us in understanding what is the place that they, is it a place a constraint for an employee? So if it is not a constraint, then the employee can come to the office and can work. But if it is a constraint, then let them work from anywhere. Another could be time. Is it that time is a constraint for me, or I will be able to work any time in a week, or any time in a day? So for example, I would say that I would like to work between 8:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., and that is what is my preferred time. I do not have any constraint of place. I can work from home or I can work from office. Fine. So, as an employee, I am giving this situation to the organization. Some other employee may say that my flexibility, uh, I do not need flexibility of time. Any time would work for me. Day, night, it's okay. But I want to work from home. Place is a constraint for me. Fine. Or some of them is unconstrained about both the things, so they are okay to work from office at night or at daytime, or at from home from at night or at daytime. So they do not have any constraint, no constraint of place, no constraint of time. So if organization can just think a little and divide their employees in these four quadrants, the attrition that is happening, or the talent attrition that is happening because of lack of flexibility, can be reduced significantly. And this simple matrix will give a lot of information about the employee, and can provide and can help organization a lot in reducing and organizing task a lot. I hope this is what you meant,
Yes,
Nivedita.
absolutely, absolutely. I think what I also gather that this process has to be pretty pre-planned. It cannot be a post-process, exercise. So of course, it has to be, a fairly pre-planned, wherein as a system, as a process in the organization, and only then I think. Please correct me if I'm wrong. That only then. An organization can reap fruits of such kind of people analytics in the long run. So it cannot be so that this is run just for a few positions, for a few high potential positions, or a few I would rather say hot positions, and only use it for that. And I think it has to be very pre-planned, very
Exactly.
time investing process as well.
Yes, yes. So, if
Sure.
so, probably before so every time we have 1 year plan, whenever we make that plan, an organization can take an informed decision. Would they like to classify their employees into these four quadrants or not? If it is suited for them, then they can do. And when they are doing this classification, it is not that they will do only for the knowledge management or knowledge driven people. It would be for traditional employees as well, or for maybe contract employee as well. So for all kind of employees, and at all level, if they are willing to, they buy in this particular classification. Then only it is possible, as you rightly
Right.
said. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Right. Now that we have spoken about, one of the most important wings of human resource management, I think something else that organizations deal maybe on an. I mean, while the process happens yearly or maybe biannually for some organizations, but I'm sure the activity runs throughout the year, which is of performance appraisal, which all employees look forward to, and I'm sure it's quite a tedious process that HR professionals take up, right, in an organization, again, irrespective of what size and sector we are talking about. So going back to that, so performance appraisal is also something that which is uh, which could help organizations actually uh, improve the performance of individuals and also make them more satisfied, as I just said, right? So how do you think that and also how can people analytics help in identifying data noise from performance appraisal?
Um, and we all know that performance appraisal is most sought after activity for everyone, but I think I would say it is most neglected also, given the kind of situation that we have, and we assume that there is no noise in the data, or in other words, there is no biases in the appraisal data, and data is objectively collected. That is what the assumption is. And therefore we will be able to differentiate good performers versus bad performers. Fine. So if you see the slide, it says there are two different normal distributions that are made, or two different group of people that are there. One who have put in very low effort, and another who have put in very high effort. And it just says that we assume that when we collect data, we will get data in something like this. The previous slide, please, Arva. So we assume that we will get data in this fashion, wherein the distribution is very significantly different for low effort people and for high effort people. But when actually we go for analysis, or but in reality what we get is something which is very different, difficult to differentiate. So the next slide, which is there, which shows that the data is overlapping. So usually we get something like this, wherein low effort people rating and high effort people rating almost are similar. So we get data something like this. We would like to get data like that in the as in the previous slide, but when performance appraisal happens, the data that we receive is mostly like this, wherein we are not able to differentiate good performer versus bad performer, or high effort people versus low effort people. And this is primarily because of presence of noise in the data. And when I say noise, I mean the biases that are there in the data. The Sometimes we have appraisers who won't be able to take ownership of the whole performance appraisal parameter. And then there would be presence of lot of biases, and non-objective way of collection of data may happen. And because of all these, there would be errors in the data. And these error, biases, non-objective way of collection of data, all these causes data to be not the perfect data, and it gives me a little imperfect data. And because of the imperfection in the data, the imperfection in the data is what noise in the data is. So if we have right data, objective data, bias free data, then we have lesser noise in the data, and we can actually try to minimize that significantly. And this is one very interesting picture that we can get anywhere actually. And just let me just share how noise in the data can lead to a situation wherein we will overfit the performance of an employee. So here what is happening is, if you see, the dotted lines are actually data for me, and how I am interpreting that data. So sometimes it becomes very difficult to interpret the data, and based on experience I can make some kind of meaning to the data. But sometimes some of us go so enthusiastic, or maybe because of biases, or maybe trying to relate unrelated things, and then trying to give a story to the data. Whenever we do this, we end up making data, we overfit data, and we try to justify data whatever we have. And all these processes are because of lot of error that is there in the data. Error, of course, in terms of biases, as I said, one. Number two, objective way of collection of data. And third error that we have is interpretation of it itself. So when we are interpreting it, we may overfit and give wrong kind of understanding to the whole performance appraisal phenomena. So it is therefore important to minimize the noise in the data by objectively collecting data, by minimizing biases, and by not overfitting our assumptions. Uh, is that okay, or
No,
too many
I
jargons did I use?
no, I think the topic in itself is so vast that having understanding the whole topic in about a span of 40 minutes or 45 minutes, I'm sure this needs much more detail, of course. But yes, prima facie, I think to begin with, this primary information is definitely very helpful. So that's yes, I'm sure we would love to engage with you more on to understanding how this could be used for performance appraisal as well. Great. Sure. Okay. Going back to the initial discussion that we were just having, Sumi, wherein you just mentioned that that just numbers are not something which is a part of people analytics. It is beyond numbers, right? So I completely agree and understand that people analytics necessarily doesn't have to be quantitative, but a very important part of it is qualitative analysis as well. So yes, if you could also kind of share as to maybe if you could just start with a little on the basics, right, as to how do you differentiate between qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis, maybe just to bring in a base for the discussion. And then of course, if you could just deep dive into what is the importance of both qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis.
Sure. Arva, actually, you can just skip two more slides, and there is a slide on qualitative and quantitative, so it would be helpful for the audience. But what I believe, Nivedita, is it is we cannot actually neglect human in human resource management. So it is very important for us to understand there is human in human resource management. So we cannot only deal with data. We are dealing with human data, we are dealing with people data, and there it is very therefore it becomes sometimes difficult to um, to quantify everything and just make sense out of quantified data. So I always emphasize on, whenever we are collecting data, it is important to listen to the narrative of the user department. Fine. So if I am my user department, I am collecting data on sales employees, it is important for us to go to the marketing and sales department, listen to the narrative of the managers of that department, make note of those narratives, because all those narratives are data for me. Fine. Just collecting number or numerical data may not be helpful. Why I'm saying this is because sometimes numerical data may give me an indication of, let us say it says manager or managerial positions of sales professionals they need training on certain skill set. And when I heard the narrative of user department, that was corroborated. So then it gives me much more authentic point to make to the top management, that my data as well as narrative of user department both said that the training on such and such aspects are required. Therefore, qualitative as well as quantitative data both are important for us. So, qualitative data here, as you can see in the slide, is more about having statements or in answering a question which is why, or observations, symbols, or in terms of written statements that are there. So whenever we take interview of someone, we will get narrative, and those narrative statements are qualitative data for us. Qualitative data are also sometimes collected in terms of expressions. So it is important for me to understand that if someone is giving me very positive answer in quantitative form, what kind of facial expression that person had at the time of giving that very positive response? Was it in line with each other? Was it in sync with each other? So whoever is collecting data must understand it is important for us to marry qualitative and quantitative data before taking any decision. So if you see, qualitative data are about something which is non-numeric, something which has written information, somewhere we can observe and identify and make note of it. On the other hand, quantitative data are in numeric form, wherein we have numbers. And the beauty of number, on the other hand, is that it gets interpreted similarly. On the qualitative data, interpretation may differ differently by different individual, but quantitative data gets interpreted in same manner, or it has similar meaning for multiple people. So that is one thing because of which quantitative data is more powerful, and therefore we have numbers here, we can measure things, we can do statistical analysis here. And therefore and I would say quantitative data relatively easier to manage in comparison to qualitative data.
Project.
And we can go actually lot of deep understanding, we can get more insight through qualitative data, support it through quantitative data, and then take it further. So that is what is my understanding on qualitative versus quantitative data in people analytics parlance.
Sure. I think these, as I just told you some time back as well, that I really feel that this whole area of people analytics definitely needs much more time in terms of investment. So we would definitely want to connect with our viewers later through email or through messages and try and understand if they would want to engage into a a workshop for a longer duration, and try and understand from you as well as to how we could kind of collaborate for the benefit of the larger group, right? So yes, I think Sumi, this was a very insightful discussion that I personally think I had with you, right? And I'm sure our viewers would carry the same opinion. So you being the expert on people analytics, and I really don't know anybody else right now other than you. So I really engage and understand your the way you make things simpler as well. So it was a pleasure having you with us, and I would now want Arva to maybe have take up questions for Sumi, and we could surely maybe address most of the questions, if not all.
Yeah, right. So we have a couple of questions here. I'll take the first question from Devdatta Acharya. He says that, as you had mentioned, that bias which possibly needs to be removed to take the right next step. He's asking, how do you see this bias getting removed, when responses to any questionnaire or survey can be subjective to timing when the data was collected, state of the individual, and other circumstances. Businesses are changing within quarters and their priorities are also shifting in. So, how do you uh, collect, get the authenticity of the data? Is what he's asking.
um, the authenticity of data is possible only through prior preparation. So little preparation is definitely required. One. Number two, we need to sensitize someone through which we are collecting data. So when I'm assuming that we are talking from performance appraisal point of view, or in general whenever we collect data. So I'm just taking performance appraisal. It is important for us to sensitize managers specifically who are going to rate their employees. HR or organization most of the time take ownership of performance management system or collection of data for appraisal. If this ownership gets shifted to managers, the data authenticity would be more. So if manager themselves are responsible for collecting data and providing right data about employee, the authenticity would be more. For this, organization, they have to prepare their managers on the importance of performance management system and the importance of data that they are collecting. So therefore I said it is important for us to sensitize them in general. Because I know Devadatta, I would just say like he may be asking from research point of view. Now, in research also, it is possible to collect data by sensitizing, providing more information to the person who is collecting data, from where we are collecting data, or the respondent. So if we will inform respondent about the purpose of the research or purpose of me collecting data, if we will sensitize them about the importance of it, it would the chances are there that we would get objective data. I can't say that we will eliminate bias, but we can definitely minimize bias.
True that. Okay, I hope the your question was answered. Next question is from Srini. He says that the candidate accepts employment offer, then during the notice period to his previous employer, which is usually 60 days, he gets another job offer, and they renege the offer in the last part of the 60-day notice. What is your advice on using predictive tools like behavior traits and anything we can get from the public infos, if you get information like from social media or anything?
Yes. So usually, what happens is as I said, there is a method of post offer follow up, and in this post offer follow up, we end up we have a method called understanding pattern of behavior, and we try and gauge the different pattern that is possible, and a particular specific pattern which may engage in renage more. So, in technical terms, I'm using that term. So there are predictive analytics tool, for example, logistics regression. It helps us in predicting whether the candidate will renege or not renege. So I have two possible outcomes, 0 and 1, wherein a candidate would renege or may not renege. And then in the as an outcome variable, and as an input variable, I have data, as I said, like notice period extended or not extended, or the date of joining extended or not extended, or the candidate is male or female, or the candidate's location has been shifted or not, and all these information that I have. And given these information, we can predict whether the candidate would renege or not renege. So I can so what Srini is actually asking is, at the last leg of the offer period, the candidate usually says that I won't join. or probably tomorrow we have to join, and today tomorrow the candidate has to join, and today the candidate is saying that I won't join. It is a cost to the organization. So what we usually do is we start seeing the pattern beforehand. We know that probably this candidate will renege, so we are ready with a waiting list candidate. We start engaging with them also. And as soon as the candidate would say no, we will engage the waiting list candidate, and we won't waste much time. But because these candidates are usually hired because a client, I have also responsibility for client. I would be answerable to client if one person did not join at a particular time. So therefore it is important for me to create a waiting list candidate by before so during the post offer follow up period itself, we understand that probably this candidate will renege, and we start engaging with the waiting list candidate, and thus we reduce the cost and time of filling the position.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So Srini says it is good to know or predict when we make an offer. Yeah. So let's move on to the next question. The next question is from Chaitanya. He says, "Hello, Sumi. Wonderful hearing your address on this fascinating issue of analytics. My concern for the projects that have shorter time cycles, like deep sea wireline testing, in the we collect and curate the data project seem to end. Can we think of providing solution using people analytics?" So
uh,
I think he means like for short term projects, uh, how to collect and curate the data for the project, so that how people analytics can be used for short term projects, hiring people for short term projects.
Yeah. So in this case, in this, I would say that it is better to have right workforce analytics, wherein we try and plan beforehand what is the duration of the project and how many people we would need for that particular project. And of course, as he rightly said, most of the time we fall short of time when we actually execute project, and we are not able to keep timeline of that. As far as I understood the question, it says how to make sure that people would be able to effectively complete task within the stipulated time of the project. Now, to
Right.
ensure this, we have to. So, actually, the answer to this question is I won't be able to actually answer it perfectly. But what I believe is mapping talent would be the best possible option. So,
Right.
I have a project. I know what all skill sets are required in this project and what kind of talent I have available in the organization given the skill set, and then map those things, map the talent required for the project and map the talent that I have in the organization. When we map these two, it would be one solution is this. Another solution is it that did we take stretch factor into account when we are trying to predict the time duration of completion of project? So if I have taken stretch factor is which is beyond our control. So sometimes, a lot of external factors comes into picture because of which the project may not go as expected. So if we will take into account that also beforehand, and try to see whether these skill sets, and given these condition, uh, time frame, number of employees available, are we will we be able to complete a project in a given time or not? So that is what I, as of now, will be able to answer the question. But I'll
Right.
take this question and we'll see how well I can frame it a little later. Yeah.
Great, great, great. Chaitanya, you can connect with ma'am on LinkedIn or offline for this. So we have a very interesting question from Ankur over here. He says, how does GDPR or the upcoming PDPB, the People Data Protection Bill, affect people analytics, especially parameters like a CIBIL score or sensitive personal information like single mom with bedridden mother. So how do you think people analytics will be affected by GDPR and PDPB?
Um, so let me just go to data privacy part. It is important for organization to collect data, and at the same time, it is very important for organization to understand the sensitivity of the data. And when we collect people analytics data, we emphasize on veracity and value parameter of. So there are 5 6 V's of analytics when
Right.
we collect data, and one of the important V's that we have for people analytics is veracity, which means quality of data, and value, which means it is not only data for an organization, it is an information of people. So we have to be sensitive about that, and we have to understand the thin line between when I'm converting an information into a data. So how organization should deal with is to understand and protect the privacy of the data. Data cannot be used or cannot be shared with anyone and everyone. Data has to be used by some authorized individual. Um, but it doesn't mean that we need not collect that data. Collection of the data is important. So collection of data about a mother having about single mother having bedridden parent is, I think, is right. We should collect that data, but how we are using it is more an important question. Is it that we are misutilizing it by taking decisions, unfavorable decisions for that, or we are utilizing it by taking more informed decision about that? So here is the difference. Rather than saying not collect or collect, it is important to say maintain privacy of the data, understand the difference between information and data, and also look at how data gets utilized, have more control on that. This would what I
Right.
would suggest.
Right, true. Absolutely agree with you on this. So big data and analytics on big data happens in this manner only. So I think people analytics won't be affected that much. We are here on a hard timeline. I'll just take one more questions. Guys, if you have more questions, please do comment and we'll try to answer your questions in the comments later. I'll just take one question from Radhika. She says, is it possible, I think it is for Nivedita, is it possible to assess the integrity of potential employee during the interview stage to predict the likelihood of joining the organization?
Well, during the interview stage, again, there can be
Yeah.
multiple stages of interview for that matter. So
Hmm.
maybe, yes, I think integrity is one parameter which definitely can help in not only predicting the likelihood of of a candidate joining or not joining in, but also if there are any chances as to how, if if there's any chances that he would engage into any kind of unethical work practices, or counterproductive work behaviors as well. So this kind of information during, or rather I would stay I would rather say a stage before just the final interview round, can definitely be very helpful.
Great. I hope we have answered almost all questions. I think a few might be there. It's almost about 1 hour. We'll end the session over here. Thank you, Sumi ma'am, for your wonderful insights. Our audience really had a great time. Thank you, Nivedita, for joining. Thank you, Nivedita, for sharing your insights as well. We follow 9 links for more LinkedIn lives that we are doing as a series. And have a good day, all you guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
Yeah.
so
you.
much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you,
Bye
everyone.
bye.
Bye bye. Have a
Bye
nice
bye.
time.
Yeah. Bye.